We've looked at how you could structure a business when you just want to work for yourself, and that's the legal structure of a sole trader. But what happens when you want or need to work with others? Well, there are a couple of options, and the first one we're going to look at is that of partnership. Now, with a partnership, you need to be careful because you can think sometimes incorrectly that it's a separate legal entity, and it isn't. It's actually like a group of sole traders who are operating together. There's no separate legal entity with a partnership. Instead, what happens is the partners all become agents and principals of each other. So you kind of get the way it operates is that this group of individuals can all go out and enter contracts, right, on behalf of all the other people there. So you're kind of getting a bit of a sole trader and a bit of a group working together. Let's look a bit more deeply at it. So as we said, a person is in a partnership if they and at least one other person, right? So there's more than one person acting in the partnership. And that it's almost like a group of sole traders working together. It's not a separate legal entity. However, because of the way that they work together, partners have mutual agency. Each partner is a principal and agent of all the other partners. So that means each partner is liable for the actions, contracts, and debts of the other partners. So partnership isn't a separate legal entity. Each partner has unlimited personal liability for the debts of the partnership. There is actually mutual liability in a partnership. So really, partnership is a contractual form. In fact, virtually all of these forms are contractual, even a company when we'll come to it, but it's a special kind of contract. So because it's a contract, we know that contracts can arise under different circumstances, that they can arise when the agreement is written or verbal or implied by conduct, right? So this becomes very interesting when we get to this idea of a partnership, of a group of people acting together in terms of a contractual relationship. What it means is that a partnership can come from a formal written document, or it could be partly in writing and partly verbal or oral, or it could be wholly or partially implied by the conduct of the parties. So that means a written partnership agreement is not essential to the existence of a partnership. But it's a very good idea to have one, just like it's a good idea to have a written contract for any major business contract. So because a partnership can come about because of the conduct of the parties, it means you can end up in a partnership even when you didn't know that you or want to be in one. So in Queensland, we have the Partnership Act, and Section 5 of the Partnership Act states partnership is the relation which subsists between persons carrying on business in common with a view to a profit. That comes from the common law definition, right? So there are three things. If you are carrying on business in common with a view to a profit, you are in a partnership, no matter what you actually thought. So what does this actually mean? Well, in terms of carrying on business, there must be some continuity or repetition of trading activities. For instance, a single investment is not considered carrying on a business. Renovating a single house, for instance, is not carrying on a business. That's a project. Renovating multiple houses, like in an ongoing way, is carrying on a business. So it's not the actual activity, it's the continuity or repetition of that activity. Now, again, importantly, this carrying on a business must be done in common. Okay, so everyone is acting on behalf of each other as well as their own self. So that can be a difficult question to determine, but if you're sharing profits, sharing costs, they're good indicators that you're carrying on a business in common. That's different if you're doing a common activity and paying for your own way and taking your own profits. Okay. The final element we need is that we must do it with a view to a profit. So if, for instance, you're carrying on a charitable activity, then you will not be in a partnership. Okay. So they're the three things we need: carrying on business in common with a view to a profit. If we have those three things, we can have a partnership. Now, we end up in a very interesting situation about a difference between a joint venture and a partnership. Because importantly, with a joint venture, we don't end up with this mutual agency relationship. It's a very different relationship. So distinguishing between the two is critical. So the key difference is a joint venture is some form of agreement where you're trying to achieve a specified business opportunity. For instance, to produce a specific thing or achieve a specific outcome. And then once you've achieved that outcome, the joint venture is over. That's different to this kind of carrying on a business issue. So what we find is that in a joint venture, the parties are acting independently, whereas partners are combining their skills and resources together. It's quite a technical area of law, and if you're involved in this area, you really should be seeking very good legal advice. Now, the best way to enter a partnership, like all areas of contract, is to have a proper formal agreement, a partnership agreement. Generally, that will clearly identify who the partners are, clearly outline the rights and responsibilities of each of the partners. It'll contain a way that you can resolve disputes between the parties, and it will give you a way to vary or supplement the rules of the partnership. Thus, it will set out the names, the nature of business, the terms of the partnership, each partner's contribution, how you're going to share profits and loss, what the authorities of the partners are, how you're going to make decisions, what your duties and obligations to each other are, how new partners can be added, what happens when a partner leaves, how you're going to resolve disputes. As you can imagine, that's a much better way of entering into a business relationship with one or more other people as compared to just doing it by implication where we're not sure about what these rights and responsibilities are. Now, there are other forms of partnership outside the general partnership, limited partnerships and incorporated limited partnerships. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them. They're quite specialist vehicles for particular kinds of business, and I'll leave you to look over the notes around those two particular entity types. Okay, so why would you even enter a partnership then? Well, you might enter it because there's a low cost, there's more secrecy, and it's much easier to do, and you can start to pool resources with others. However, we've also seen that there's some big disadvantages, particularly that unlimited personal liability and the liability that comes through being an agent and a principal of all the other partners. You're also going to find that you lack ultimate control because you're going to have to agree with the other partners about decision making, so you lack much more control compared to that sole trader. And finally, as with a joint venture, it can be difficult to dispose or sell a partnership because the property is owned by the partners, the same kind of contract issue that we had with sole trader, because there's no separate legal entity. So that's structuring your business as a partnership. Now we want to look at how we might structure our business as a trust.